From my perspective, one of the main goals of effective classroom management is to reduce the behaviors you don't want to see and increase the behaviors you do. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some steps on how to reduce challenging behaviors in your classroom, regardless of the grade level. Coming up next. Hey everybody, Michelle Holiday here. I'm a behavior strategist and I help teachers, schools, districts, organizations learn systems and strategies on how to manage their classroom and their students with less stress and less struggle. And so in today's video, we're going to talk about some steps on how you can reduce challenging behaviors in your classroom, regardless of the grade level. So before I share the steps, before you even start to embark on this path of reducing challenging behaviors, there are two mindsets that I want you to put on. The first mindset is that change is possible even with my students. So no matter how frustrating your students have been, no matter how chaotic they have been, please start to put on this mindset that change is possible even with that student. The second mindset I want you to put on is that change may not be immediate. So as you begin to implement these steps, understand that change is not going to be immediate. Change is not going to happen right away all the time. A lot of times it's about it being a process, or as I like to call it, behavior change is a marathon and not a sprint. These two mindsets really help me to see results and change in the different classrooms I've managed and the schools that I have supported. Step number one, you're going to need a strong foundational management system, meaning you can't just wing this. You're actually going to have to put a system in place that addresses the different needs of your classroom and how you operate your classroom. Now, I happen to have a workshop called Classroom Management Framework, where it will teach you those steps. But whether you use that or you use your own, start to think about the what, where, who, why, and when it comes to how you do your classroom. But you need something strong, something that's solid, that will give you a great foundation as you move forward. Step number two, know the when and the why behind the behaviors. So it can't just be, oh, my class is out of control. Oh, my class is so chaotic. Oh, my students are so terrible. Oh, my students just don't know how to behave. You need to know the specific behaviors that are happening and when they are happening, before lunch, after lunch. Are they happening during a certain academic time? Do they happen when a certain group of students come together, but when they're absent, you don't see them? So you really want to get into the what and when of what's happening. But then you also need to know the why. And that will require a little bit more time. But what helps you to know the why is to look at the patterns surrounding the behavior. So really looking at what happens before, during, and after a behavior happens, in conjunction with the when and the what, really can help you get ahead of these behaviors and reduce them from happening. Step number three, have specific strategies in your toolbox. Here's the thing, saying stop doing that is not enough. And I'm also going to tell you something that may surprise you. Sending them out of your classroom is not enough either, because guess what? They're going to have to come back. Now, what do? Also, you have to face the fact that there are certain behaviors that don't qualify for out-of-class assistance. So what do you do there? So you need to start to develop some strategies, how you can address them, and keep them in your toolbox to pull out based on the student and the behavior that you're seeing. So you may be saying, well, how do I get these strategies? You can look at different videos like the one I provide or others. You can start to read articles and different blogs. You also may have to invest in the change. Now, as a teacher, I know a lot of you don't have a lot of money, but then start to look into your school and say, okay, are there grants available? Are there pockets of money that I can use to help develop my skills when it comes to my classroom? So now you have the mindset, now you have that foundational system, now you have specific strategies for those behaviors. Now it's about implementing. And that is sometimes where things fall down for teachers with challenging students, is that they don't do the implementation part or they don't do it long enough. 3 days is not long enough. And sometimes, I know you're not going to want to hear this, 10 days is not long enough either. But I will say, if you are consistently implementing effective strategies for 10 days, you should see a change, period. As a matter of fact, I challenge you, if you have a strategy that is very specific to the behavior and addresses the what, when, where, and why, implement it for 10 days, regardless of what the student does, regardless of how they're like, this is not going to work. You think you're hurting me. You think you're doing something. Ignore that and just implement in the face of adversity and see if change doesn't happen. And then step number 5, reflect and adjust. Now, this can look like different things based on your student or the behavior. So when I say reflect, after 10 days, say, okay, what has changed? Has anything changed? Has there been a reduction? So they still might be calling out, but instead of calling out 5 times a day, they're calling out once a day. They still may be walking out of the classroom or walking around the classroom, but instead of having to talk to them every 30 minutes, you're having to talk to them twice a day. So look at what progress am I seeing and start with small progress. If you're thinking I'm going to eradicate challenging behavior that a lot of times has been happening for much longer than you've been teaching them in 10 days, oftentimes that will not work. Not saying it doesn't, because there's definitely been times where I've implemented for like 2 weeks and the behavior went away, at least for a season, right? But I took a look at the data, I reflected on it, and I said, okay, this is the change I'm seeing. And then you adjust. And so maybe the adjust means that you reduce the frequency or you increase the frequency. Your adjustment may be how you respond or how often you respond changes. But all of that happens when it comes to reducing challenging behaviors. I am not suggesting that you do this all by yourself. If you can find a really good support staff to help you, if you can maybe even work with someone who's like a peer teacher to help you, that would be better and that would be more helpful because you can talk about it, you can reflect on things together, you can support one another, you can walk through this together. If you don't have that support in your school, you may have to start doing it by yourself. I know as a teacher, I had to start doing it by myself on my own. And it wasn't even so much where people were like, okay, I'll help you. But then when they tried to help, it wasn't effective or it wasn't consistent. And it's just me and those students in the classroom. So I had to come up with some things that forced me to come up with things on my own that I could implement on my own so I could be consistent in order to see change. Then in time, I was able to incorporate other people to help. Here's a couple of truths I also want you to know. Reducing challenging behaviors is not for the faint of heart, right? It will try your patience. It will possibly make you uncomfortable. But on the other side, there are results that can come from this. So there you have it, 5 steps on how you can reduce challenging behaviors in your classroom. What have you done to reduce challenging behaviors in your classroom? Leave it in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.